other COVID cases that is going on. It's your boy, as always, JJ Lewis, aka the Golden Child, alongside Diamond Cutter, alongside Kid Time, alongside the People's Champ, here to bring you the wrestling news of the week. And we want to kick it off Monday Night Raw, which was the last recorded show for wrestling. And, you know, this lowest drawing Raw thing, it's something to be said because, like, we had the slew of news coming out with Charlotte basically making the statement, I suppose, to why she's been out with her surgery, situations, and Becky Lynch being out. Now we have John Cena basically quietly, not renewing his contract. Like, how does Raw and WWE weather this storm?
Build new talent. I mean, that's the only thing they can do. The only thing they can do is build more talent. They can't, this is something that fans have been calling for years. I mean, what have we seen? We've seen since in the COVID era, let's just call it that. In the COVID era, we've seen Apollo Crews finally become champion. We've seen Braun Strowman, after so many years, become Universal Champion. What else have we seen that a lot of fans have been calling for? Asuka finally getting a win over Charlotte, even though it wasn't on a big pay-per-view. So, I mean, we've been seeing a lot of things that fans have been calling for. This is the time now to push those stars that really should be getting a push. I mean, we finally saw Bianca Belair back on TV and Shayna Baszler. They haven't been used since, after Mania. So now it's time to utilize each division. It's time to basically push the stars that need to get pushed. Bianca Belair, Shayna Baszler should be another one at the forefront. As far as the men's go, it's too early to break up tag teams. I mean, there are no tag teams on the main roster. So I can't say that you should break up tag teams and push one sole person as a single star. But Kevin Owens, before we got on and started recording, I already said, Kevin Owens his character has been obsessed with Seth Rollins. That needs to go. KO needs to either put him in limbo until he's ready to fight for the WWE title, or do something else with him. And then Joe is still sitting on commentary as well. And who knows when he's coming back. So it's like you have the people to do the necessary things that you need to do. It's just you have to push people. As far as everyone else being out, we don't know when they're coming back. We don't know if Cena's going to renew his contract. It's just he hasn't renewed it as of yet. And, Charlotte's going to be out a number of months. Becky's going to be out a number of months. So you just have to start pushing new stars. Point blank, period.
And, it feels like an ironic twist, because like Paul Heyman less than a month ago got, essentially relieved of his duties for this exact reason, ratings going down, and him saying that you have to kind of swallow this poison pill of not having the ratings that you want in order to build stars of the future. You mentioned Asuka basically getting her run, Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, who's just eclipsed 100 days as WWE champion. So obviously certain things have been progressing forward, but it's one of those things where you have to swallow that pill in the short run in order to progress in the long run. I'm Kid Ty and People's Champ. I know you guys are salivating enough to get to this topic. What you guys' thoughts?
Oh boy. Swallow the pill for short-term problems for long-term benefits has kind of been my MO since we started this podcast. I've said it before we started, back when we first theorized it like a year ago to now. Like, Vince McMahon is a very short-term, goal-oriented, practical person. I get it. At least in this frame right now, that's how he's been the past couple of years, right? But we're at the point now where WWE, you can tell by their writing, it feels like they're in panic mode with some of the things that they've written, just to stay. And it seems like they're just trying to coast and stay afloat. We've mentioned it in respective divisions all across WWE. NXT has its problems. WWE, SmackDown, and Raw both have their problems. And at this point, if you're in a situation where your ratings are this low to where people are this disinterested, the answer isn't so much put on the best show you can next week to bring things back. That's like for those who played the SmackDown versus Raw games, that's like a GM mode type move where you panic. So you put all your eggs in one basket and try to get everybody's attention for that 1 minute so they can remind themselves of how good you used to be. They need to build. And if they're in a situation where they're already in the dirt, then staying in the dirt isn't going to feel much different next week or this week or the next week. It's gradually getting yourself out of the dirt that matters. When Eric was talking about building stars, one of the things that I thought of, because everybody thinks to themselves, well, you got to get out of there fast. It's like, not really. You have to book people and organize your card, organize your roster, and book them where their strong suits really do lie, or in areas where they can excel because of what they've done in the past, or because of the dynamic of what feud they're in. And one feud that came to my mind recently was Mick Foley and Randy Orton in 2004. Where 2 years before that, Randy Orton had one big match with Undertaker on SmackDown for the the Undisputed Championship. Universal title doesn't exist. The Undisputed WWE Championship, where he showed the world, okay, this is a guy that might have some potential, right? Next year, he's essentially an evolution. 2004, Randy, I believe this is 2004, right?
It was 2003 storyline that led into 4. It culminated, yeah.
You had Randy Orton, a pretty boy who was spoiled and reaping the benefits of being in a group like Evolution, fighting against a hardcore legend who's been doing death matches all across the world, including Japan, on top of WWF and ECW. And you put him in this hardcore environment, and everyone's kind of just looking at this like, what's Randy Orton going to do to Mick Foley in a hardcore match? And they set the scenario up to where, you could tell Orton's on the rise, but you ain't getting past Mick. You're not going to beat Mick at his own game. And what did he do? From that point on, you can argue the fans had built a healthy respect for Randy Orton to even where if his booking was they could sit there and go, yo, that's not like a dude I'm going to forget. Because, you don't just walk into Mick Foley's house and make him pay his own rent to stay. Now that's your house. You know what I mean? Mm. And what's going to stop you from doing something like that with Kevin Owens at a pay-per-view called Extreme Rules? When you see Kevin Owens, who's done crazy shit, both in the WWE to a smaller extent, but just look at him in Ring of Honor. If you just want to use Ring of Honor as an example, why not use the pay-per-view that most people see is just, filler for the bigger events? I mean, we're used to it with the in-your-house system. It's been like this for a long time. But why not make it worth people's while to see certain people grow? So it could be like, yo, I remember Extreme Rules 2020. That was the day that Kevin Owens really showed me that he's a tough-ass son of a bitch, And that led to greater success moving on, but this was really the start of it. Some people like to do that with different eras of the company. Some people argue the Attitude Era started in 97, right? Some people argue that it started in maybe mid to late 96, right? So, but the point being is that there was at least a memorable enough moment to where you can sit there and go, I saw the seed planted of what was to come. And that's what a lot of the superstars on the roster need, the ability to have that seed planted so they can grow. And if you're in a situation where you're in panic mode, you don't know what to do, you have a lot of stars that have left you, right? Then why not just do what you did in New Generation? Why not do what you did in Ruthless Aggression Era and take some of the stars that are not that big at the moment, make them bigger stars, make them the gatekeepers and the guards of the company to help continue building until you find that new star. And who knows, that new star could be in the crop you currently have. It could be somebody in developmental. It could be somebody in NXT just waiting. Or maybe you get lucky and you strike a whole bunch of big stars like you did in Ruthless Aggression, right? But you're not going to know if you don't take the chance. And you're in a perfect position where you're already failing. You can't go any lower than this. And even if you do, you can still build and go from this low point to rise higher. If you actually try, you can only go up from here, barring injury or illness or anything else that comes through, of course. But that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. I feel like the floor does. People's Champ, I wanna ask you this question because I know, once you heard the word John Cena and contract expiring, it drew some form of attention afoot for you. What is your thoughts on it? What's next for that situation in your eyes?
John Cena is a person who has been the pinnacle of WWE over the last 18 years, and in terms of his prime, looking at 15 years. As it pertains to John, I mean, he has carried the company probably during its lowest time, following their biggest era. From the Attitude Era and parts of the Ruthless Aggression Era, he's carried the WWE, on his back for a very long time. And for his contract expiring, I wouldn't say it's shocking to the naked eye or to the lesser known fans or whatnot. It was bound to happen in terms of his contract expiring because he's out doing movies full time. He's out pursuing movies full time. And anyone who knows John Cena knows that he does bleed WWE. But he's also, had the open mind and foresight to also think outside the box and think of alternatives if he weren't to be part of the WWE family. Now, obviously, hindsight 2020, he's going to resign the contract. But also, one would, fantasize and dream of the possibility of him possibly doing a one-off match in Japan, or kind of going the Hogan route, what he did in '92. Going to other promotions, doing either one-off matches or just, creating other moments until he feels comfortable enough coming back. Hogan did the same thing. Now, I'm not saying Cena would do that, but Cena has always had the business sense to think outside the box in terms of people he'd like to face. Now that he's a free agent, he does have an idea to maybe I can probably do these one-off matches in different promotions or different areas where I can just sign up for one match, do this big thing, and then just go here and then go here. And then by the time, I feel good enough to come back, if the story is right in WWE, I would come back. Because if he were to come back right now, even signing a new contract, there's nothing for John Cena, storyline-wise, to basically come in and, be a focal point. If he would come in, he would just end up, squandering someone's push or devaluing someone's status in the company, so the story doesn't really meet for him to kind of come back, even if he were to sign a contract. So, and then there's no alternative for him pursuing movies. Obviously years ago he says he'll never leave and WWE is all he has, but truth be told, he was going to be in Hollywood someday. You knew it. He had the look, and obviously with the big endorsement from The Rock, he's been able to, in his own way, break in. Obviously this year was supposed to be the year that he was supposed to have a breakout role in Fast and the Furious 9, starring Vin Diesel and the Fast and the Furious crew. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's delayed and whatnot. So he's continuing to find ways to keep himself busy and to reinvent himself. This gives John Cena an opportunity to be in the headspace to do other things. And if it does take him away from WWE, not for long term, just to do other things and reinvigorate the business as a whole, I feel like he would pursue that avenue. But also, he is a homer, and he is, loyal to Vince McMahon, and will stay with the WWE because that's his home. That's where he made his name. But, I also see the aspect of him pursuing other venues just to spice things up a little bit, because having his name in other little promotions, say if he went to New Japan to face off their best star or Jay White or Naito, anybody that's high status in New Japan, it would instantly galvanize the interest of wrestling fans everywhere, including WWE fans. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to do that? And if a business like WWE right now, they're bleeding dry in terms of notoriety, attention, and ratings. So what better way to include more eyes from where you're at now than to branch out to other promotions like a New Japan, where he's been in parts of Asia over the last few years, and he is very popular out there in the Asian continent. So I see that happening as well. And Johnson has good enough business sense to basically bet on himself if he doesn't re-sign a contract, right away with WWE.
Possibilities are definitely endless, and it's interesting to see what he would do, but also what the business would do. You know what I mean? Because we kind of parallel certain similarities between The Rock and John Cena. The Rock kind of had a similar situation in 2004, quietly retiring after X amount of months of not being in action. And back then, WWE kind of took it the petty route of like, oh, we're not going to re-sign you. For a guy like John Cena years later, seeing what The Rock did for them in his second comeback, his second go-round, perhaps they are a little more generous this time forward. I do want to shift gears, not too far, but right back into like this Raw, SmackDown sort of deal as it pertains to the women's division, because a lot of things have been going on in that whole sphere. Not good, some indifferent, some just not so good. On SmackDown, we had the karaoke situation that led to the multi-woman rivalry between Naomi, Lacey Evans. You had Tamina, and you had Dana Brooke. On SmackDown, on Raw, excuse me, we had the return of, as Eric mentioned earlier on, Shayna Baszler and Bianca Belair, but not in storylines or situations that we expected them to be in. Now, before we even get into the SmackDown aspect of it, are we booking or burying the surprise returns of both Bianca and Shayna Baszler?
Book it, man. Come on. You got to book it.
Definitely.
No, the way, not the fact that they're back, but the way that they were brought back.
Oof. No, that's a.
Now you
I'm gonna give mine.
Oh, go ahead, kids.
I'm gonna give mine.
Yeah, I gotta bury it. I gotta bury it.
There are two things I want to normalize here. Although I don't like using this term because it's just a hot term to use, even though it has a lot of credit. Like, there are a lot of points being made with this normalized term. First, I want to normalize, just because we have been smelling shit for months does not mean when we smell, say, a little bit of Febreze that we should be gracious. Should we be grateful that it happened? Yes, but we should still have standards. And two, surprise returns in an era of social media where everything starts to trend for a while should not be an excuse for disorganization. That's where I stand. Because we haven't seen Shayna Baszler since, I believe, March or May.
It was Money in the Bank.
So, yeah, it's been a minute. And Bianca Belair, I don't know, we've been complaining for episodes as to where she's been. And, Bianca is one of those people who's so talented that if you put her in various different booking situations, she can usually shine, get her character across, and make it work for whatever moment she's in. And that's a quality that many showrunners heavily treasure, because it allows them to rely on you to help fill in a terrible spot on the card or fill in a gap that maybe we would have had difficulty finding someone else to do. You're a solid worker, a consistent worker that we know can work with anything, and we know your abilities because of how much flexibility that you have. But it's also an ability that showrunners like to abuse when they don't have anything to do. Because in a sense, you can fill the quota of, oh, we got her on the show. It's not like she looked bad, but it's like, yeah, but if you have her and she's in a certain spot, why not use her in a role more fitting of who she is as opposed to just filling her anywhere, right? And I love me some Ruby Riott, don't get me wrong, but this is not an alliance that should last very long, personally. These two, I mean, it's a weird alliance. We've seen weirder things. This kind of reminds me of Kofi and CM Punk in a sense, where it's reversed. The black individuals, the more charismatic of the two at the moment than the other. But, like, these two are so talented, they don't need to be in an alliance. Like last time we were here, I said Liv and Ruby, despite having storyline ties, should not be back as a team. Why the hell would I be for Bianca and Ruby being a team? Assuming that it does go farther than that. I would use this as a springboard to give Bianca more things to do and continue Ruby's story of finding herself, sure. But no, I'm not booking that. And as for the other stuff, like the other Shayna just came in between like a random segment, and yes, her standing up to men, I know some people will look at that as like that's a sign of strength, and it's like Shayna's beyond just a simple sign of strength if that's how you want to interpret it. Not saying you have to, but that's how some people have. Shayna should be choking R-Truth out. Shayna showed Rey Mysterio no mercy. What makes you think R-Truth is going to last very long if Shayna comes up from behind and just Karafuda clutches it. You know what I mean? Like, Shayna's been done dirty for months. Since she's been on the main roster, she's been a vampire, had the most dominant Elimination Chamber victory of all time, even though it wasn't needed, had she just won the Rumble, because Charlotte worked out, right? And now she just appears after, you know, having a fluky-ass loss to Becky Lynch and then basically being a non-factor in the Money in the Bank. So if you're going to use this as a way to bring her back as a serious force, please go all in. Please. She's already eliminated most of the women's roster as is. So there's no excuse for her to lose. Make people care about her again, of course, but I don't like the way they were brought back on television. I don't like the randomness.
If you wanna, this is my thing as far as the Shayna Baszler thing goes. If you wanna really get people talking, that was not the moment to put Shayna on Raw. Now, how I would book it would be this. Let's just say, who is Asuka fighting for the title? She's fighting Sasha Banks. So let's just say Asuka comes out, cut the promo on Monday Night Raw, whatever. Shayna comes and chokes her out. That's how you make a statement. You do what they did with Becky, because that's exactly what she did with Becky. That's what had all of us hype here. She came out and made a statement. You have to make statements. Shayna's been off TV. Placing her in a tag team match is not going to be like, oh man, I'm going to look at Raw every week because I want to see Shayna Baszler. No, what's going to make you want to see Shayna Baszler? You go after the biggest, baddest woman on the roster. Biggest, baddest woman on the roster right now is Asuka. You wouldn't imagine if Asuka would get choked out. Usually Asuka's doing the choking. So see it reversed?
It's a linear path. You know what I mean? It's a linear path at the end of the day. Like, you don't dance around the topic, you go straight for it.
Although we did see her get tapped out at the Elimination Chamber. I do see your point. I would have said just have her choke out Nia Jax. Like, find Nia Jax backstage.
That would have been even something.
You know,
but see, the thing is that so many people have been off TV. For instance, this has nothing to do with it. Where the hell is Otis? Where is Otis? Otis is the Money in the Bank. He's the Money in the Bank winner. Where the hell is Otis?
I mean, we could be superficial and guesstimate where he is, but you know, he's dealing with Mandy Rose.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So you know, in storyline it makes sense. In storyline it makes sense.
Don't get me wrong.
But you know, we can get a little more vignettes. Get him some sexual.
The fact that you can, that's the thing. The fact that you can point that out off rip just goes to show this, like, there was no storyline explanation. Like, the fact you don't want to be in a situation where you have to write, you want to tie knots later into the story than earlier. You want to make storylines where people can follow where you're going, but you don't give too much to where it's predictable. You want to have structure throughout the entire thing, but you don't want to sit there and be like, oh, so we did this random thing 3 weeks ago. Let's just explain it on this new episode of Raw so that people can, so it makes sense when somebody watches it back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now you're just covering your ass.
Kid Ty, let's tag in People's Champ on this, because initially, upon bringing it up, you were like, "Oh, I'm booking the comeback," but when you realize the framework, are you still on that stance? Are you switching up? What's your take on it?
Yeah, after the initial thought, like before Ty started off, I'd rather just change the mind frame of it, and the reason why I say that is because, look, as happy as I was to see Bianca and Shayna, because their star power is definitely needed, especially in the women's division. It's rough because ever since Paul Heyman was let go of that role, or he was demoted, because I wouldn't say fired, he was demoted from the role. You started to see the effects of his departure early and fast, in terms of how well certain things were beginning to build up in terms of consistency. Now it's kind of starting to scale back a little bit, because the last couple of weeks, especially on the main show, all we've been seeing more fluff than actual matches, more kooky angles rather than serious sell points to a match or to a feud. And it's been rough to kind of see how things have kind of gone about. And now you just plug in these two people back as if nothing happened. You know, I found it to be, as happy as I was to see them, it was kind of like so random because you can't put, you know, Bianca in a role where that's basically Liv Morgan's role and she wasn't there for, you know, her reasons, you know, undisclosed reasons. And then for Shayna to come out and just do, now, like Eric said, you know, I would have booked it almost similar to that, except if they were serious about Shayna making a comeback and making an impact, what better impact to come back than Extreme Rules Horror Show? Have you come back during the middle of the match. Now, I know, like, interfering a title match would be somewhat cliched, but in terms of that storyline or a boost, especially for the females, because they sorely need it, having Shayna interrupt that match and choking one of the competitors out is probably the most important thing you would have done to make a huge statement. Because Shayna is a person that, like she's like basically death's door coming for you, and you know what's going to happen. Like, once you know that she's on her way to kick your ass and take names, you already know what time it is. It's like she pulls up on site and she know what she wants and she gonna take it. Ain't nobody gonna tell her anything different. That's who Shayna Baszler is. And to have her just come back and be part of the little act with, Akira Tozawa, his ninjas, and R-Truth, I mean, sure, it's cool that she did what she did, but that's not how you want to build someone that serious. Shayna Baszler is a serious competitor. Like, you would book her how you would book a Brock Lesnar. Like, she is a serious competitor. She came for one reason only, to beat up everybody and to be the champion. Like, realistically, if you want to book someone that realistic, you have to book it by who she is, not by how you want it. And like Todd said for weeks, for the last 3 months, however, the booking has been an audience of one. And at some point, you have to understand that you can only do so much to favor yourself in the booking wise when you're in a sinking ship, and we'll get to AEW in a moment because they have certain similar situations as well in terms of how their booking is, and it's unfortunate, but for WWE, they've had this hemorrhaging. I can't say bleeding. They've had this hemorrhaging for years. They try to keep putting Band-Aids and keep finding ways to like cut corners and try to like patch smoke, like a huge ass cut. You can't keep doing it. At some point, people are gonna see you showing your ass a little bit and calling you out on it. And Vince, as much as he's brought us all these great things, and great attention and whatnot, you have basically found ways to ruin your own company, to spite yourself, and you complain and you basically you blame it on others. Like Paul Heyman had good intentions, he did what he could, but at least what he was doing may have been different, it was working. It was a slow process. And the one thing that I'm glad that still left off of that Heyman thing is the fact that MVP is able to do his stable. Now, I'm not sure how far they let him do it, but I'm appreciative of the fact that they're letting someone that strong go about his own business and basically help build up the next crop or the current crop of talent. Apollo Crews is a great talent. Ricochet, who I love, is a great talent and could do more with a mouthpiece like MVP so he can cultivate certain areas where he's lacking at. Cedric Alexander, another one too. Shelton Benjamin, in that crop what MVP is trying to cultivate. And you have guys in the back that you really don't use as agents. And guys that are there, you can definitely use MVP as an on-air agent or on-screen agent who can basically help guys along the way. Because if you're solely using Bruce Pritchard to basically help with the creation aspect of your company, creative-wise, it's not gonna work. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that Bruce Pritchard has done well, but at the same time, over the last couple of weeks, and it's been evident, he's been writing only for Vince, not writing for the fans and writing for the progression of his own company. Because when you listen to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, he has fantastic ideas in terms of how to progress and prolong the industry. But when you're writing for Vince McMahon, an audience of one, it's been tough to kind of figure out how to meet in the middle. Because if you try to input your ideas and the ideas of the public that you're basically taking insight from, Vince has a hermit crab mentality. He has a bunker mentality. He's not going to come out from his bunker and see the forest from the trees in terms of what is really out there, which is why it's tough for people to get invested in what we see in this current product. And currently, I don't blame the fans for not tuning in, because you're being fed the same kind of stuff that has been like the same rhetoric week after week after week. And there's only so much that fans can take. Now, yes, you put the right people in position. Like, yo, I love the fact that in WWE, they're all black champions, and and with Drew and Braun. But, at some point, it's like you have to expound on that. There's so much talent. There's so much. WWE, yes, it's the biggest wrestling company in the world. Bigger than New Japan, bigger than AEW, even though they're in their infancy stages, Impact, ROH, everywhere. They're the biggest show in town. And they're not showing why they're the biggest show in town. They're basically just appeasing one person and one person only. And at the end of the day, that's the reason why people want to leave. Like, to the point where I was shocked that Kairi Sane came back and actually did a match. If I was her, I would have been on a Fight to Japan back going to my husband, or going back to Shimmer, or going back to other promotions in Japan and retiring there, rather than just coming back and doing a match because you don't want me to leave. Like, that's bullshit. And that's not good on the performers. And you see Kevin Owens going back and forth with him, just to even put on masks. The fact that Kevin Owens has the balls really to go up there and speak up. It's been a long time since someone with the foresight and the gonads to walk into Vince's office and say, listen, you're fucking up. And being the only person I would say that came from NXT, from what Triple H helped cultivate, that succeeded and somewhat still has a career despite that, it tells you something, that Kevin Owens is, one, headstrong, and two, not only has the best interest of your company at hand, but the best interest of everybody that busts their ass during this COVID time. Because if it were up to these performers, they'd be home right now. They'd be home right now like Roman Reigns is with his kids. They'd be home trying to find ways. Sure, they won't be making money. They won't be doing this, but it's okay. But they won't be subjected to the bullshit. Like Naomi even said she had to make chicken salad out of chicken shit this past week.
With the topic, yes. Yeah.
Going.
So with the topic at hand, it's something has to give.
Oh.
Something does have to give. I don't even know. I don't know how to properly segue that. I will say all of that, yes. To shift gears, there is
Wednesday Night Wars.
Yeah, Wednesday Night Wars. NXT. You have Fight for the Fallen. Yeah, what's the show you guys want to watch tonight?
So Fight for the Fallen Part 3?
No,
that was
whoa.
Nah.
Because I'll be the first one to admit Fight for the Fallen. Fighter Fest into Fight for the Fallen. So this is another one.
Yeah, and call it. John Moxley wasn't able to compete in night 2. This coming week he is able to compete. Fortunately enough, so it'll be he versus your boy Cage with Taz by his side for the AEW World Championship. On the other side, Tegan Nox is having a NXT Women's Title match with one Io Shirai headlining that show, as well as Keith Lee showing up as a dual champion. What is your must-watch of this week? NXT, AEW. Get time.
One, I'm so proud of you, Randy. I don't get to hear this enough. That big smile on his face.
I was so close to calling dogs. I was like, yo, man, we
uploaded that as a separate clip. That's a
Hold up. I was like, I gotta let him go, but I was like, oh damn. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, but which one are you picking tonight?
I'm gonna put it like this. Which one do I think more people are gonna watch? Probably Cage and Moxley. They've been building this for a little bit. Cage being built as a freak of nature. I think you know, like granted, I might not agree with Cage on some personal things, and you know, honestly, his style isn't my thing, right? But as far as him being a specimen and looking the part of a wrestler and looking like an intimidating force, you see the stereotype used all the time. You see somebody like that, you go, this could be their Lesnar. You know, this, and I'm not talking like current day Lesnar, like prime Lesnar and like ruthless aggression, essentially. This could be their freak of nature that they could center the company around as one of their top guys for years to come. I think that's one of the reasons why he came over from Impact in the first place, to be a big player. So I think more people will be watching that. Personally, especially with the FTW Championship being brought back, I know that was a huge pop across the entire wrestling world. I saw people who boycotted American Pro Wrestling talking about, yo, Taz brought back the FTW Championship, and I've seen so many retro Taz images since with the different versions of the belt, you know? So I'm sure it's going to be a lot of eyes on that. As far as me, I actually want to see this NXT Women's World title match, personally. And the reason why is because I think the dynamic is very interesting. That's probably the show I'm going to watch the most, because for one, a lot of the little character things that they've done with Io as NXT Women's Champion, I've already liked already. You know, like her being in some sort of like weird sanctuary where she's laying down with the championship, and that's like her prize, her baby. She's this elegant, yet when she flips a switch, crazy, maniacal, insane champion. The fact that she is coming off of a lot of momentum between the win at, you know, In Your House, the controversial yet entertaining win at Great American Bash, right? You want to see where it goes. I can't say I've been interested in an NXT champion like this in a while. You know, like, in general, I'm talking like all the belts, not even just the women's championship. But if we're talking about the women's championship, I haven't been interested in a champion like this probably since Kyrie, and that's no offense to any of the ones in between. But Rhea Ripley's run, to me, when she got to the top of the mountain, right? It came out of nowhere for me, and it built into something better. Shayna had been champion for so long, you were just waiting for somebody to take it off of her because you wanted to see her move to the next level. Now we regret that decision. And Charlotte was ratings. Like, that belt, like, honestly, I'm getting to the point where certain title reigns just don't count for me because I know they're not genuine title reigns. So to see a fresh new champion in Io, I want to see where the reign goes. I think Tegan Nox is a great matchup. I think it's going to do wonders for Tegan, barring injury or anything else, because Tegan needs a little level up. They need to start making everybody in the women's division feel like a threat, right? So if this is a star-making performance in terms of getting across who Tegan Nox is, that's what I'd rather see. This match and whatever they got on NXT right now. But I do think the popular opinion is going to go to AEW.
E, what's your show of the week? Your personal show of the week? What you going with?
You know, it's interesting to say the least, because I like what they're doing on NXT with Io Shirai. If anyone saw like her video package promoting the championship match, she's really not a face. She's really not a heel. It's like 1 week she can be a face, 1 week she can be a heel. She's a tweener right now for me. I'm interested to see that match and to see character behavior. That's basically what I'm interested in seeing. Keith Lee, I'm very interested to see how they're going to progress with Keith Lee as far as being a dual champion now. And, side note, incredible match. I got a chance to actually watch it over the weekend. Very incredible. Loved it. Is the next thing now is Adam Cole going to get a rematch? Or they're going to push for the Karrion Kross match? What are they going to do now? So, but on the other hand, AEW, you have, you know, their biggest match they've been promoting for a month now, which is Cage and Moxley. And if you want my honest opinion, I think it's time for Moxley to drop that title. And I'm going to be the different one here. I'm going to go with AEW because I want to see if they're going to pull the trigger and push somebody new. And with Taz in Brian Cage's corner, Taz has been nothing but phenomenal. He's underrated. I've said this before on the show. He is one of the best mic workers. Cage doesn't have to say anything but show up, whoop ass, and go home. Taz speaks for him. Taz
really is a Lesnar dynamic.
It's the shock factor. And you know what? It's funny because, like, you know, we we expound upon like how much mic work that MVP has done for the past several months, let alone weeks. You kind of see that brewing with Taz. So we may actually see something come to fruition from that this upcoming episode of AEW. So I'm definitely with you with that.
Before we switch it over to Randy though, this is, if anybody has actually listened, well, I mean, he doesn't do his podcast anymore because he's on AEW. But if anyone's actually listened to Taz's podcast, Taz cuts promos without even really cutting promos. Like, if you really sit down and listen to his podcast, he still has past episodes up there. If you guys really want to listen to his podcast, listen to them. The man has rants and promos.
Listen to his podcast.
As if, and he's just talking. He's legit just talking.
From Red Hook,
That's
man.
how good he is. That's how good he is.
Red Hook plus confidence plus these streets equal. You can talk yourself out of anything.
Being a New Yorker plus being from Red Hook plus being probably one of the most underrated talkers ever just mixes all into one. Go ahead, Randy. What's your show for the week?
I'm actually making a switch this week. I'm switching to AEW this week for the reason that
Holy shit.
Jon Moxley, and here's why. Jon Moxley,
This is a gimmick change?
I've been a proponent of the fact that they put the championship on Jon Moxley too soon. They put the championship on him too soon. I felt like Chris Jericho could have held it until someone worthy enough will take it. I thought it was going to be Hangman, but they haven't pulled that trigger yet. So, because they put the championship on him, hasn't really been fruitful. Kind of like his WWE championship run 4 years ago. Now, I'm a fan of Jon Moxley / Dean Ambrose, but he's been nothing but Dean Ambrose since he's been to AEW. There's been no significant differences. Sure, there's been a little bit more Mox violence that's been involved. As a champion, he hasn't really basically pushed the needle in terms of the company, like Chris Jericho has. When Chris Jericho was champion, I tell you not, this whole panel would be lying if y'all would be lying if y'all didn't want to tune in every week with Chris Jericho being champion. At least with Jericho being champion, you'd want to tune in and see what kind of zany thing he would do to basically undermine, whoever wants the championship title. Like,
so wait, hold on. So wait, we hearing you talking about Jericho in his reign. Talking about how Jon Moxley's been booked, but you're picking AEW.
Yeah.
That
Because
doesn't.
he has hope something will change.
I want to see. I want to see. I want to see if they pull the trigger on Brian Cage, winning the championship. That and the fact that
That's valid.
I get to see the beautiful free agent. I'm thinking they might have signed already. The beautiful Faye Jackson, who's basically been on ringside as one of their fans for the last.
Here we go.
Oh, man.
So,
Dead forgot about that.
We got to move on before these two start because it ain't going to end.
I mean,
keep your eyes open.
You got to, Jay, do your thing. You got to edit this out.
Listen.
I mean, Faye Jackson.
AEW's already the show to watch. Faye Jackson.
Yeah.
Faye is Bay.
Jackson, go
Faye,
for
if
it.
you're watching, you ain't got. I'm not saying you got to lie. I'm just saying. We know it's you. It's all good.
Jay, edit it out.
We
gotta go.
He hasn't been on social media either.
We
gotta go.
We're gonna keep it moving. To be honest with you, I wanted the next thing is usually to naturally progress to SmackDown, but it's almost as if we lead into the predictions. So I'll kind of just like table that for a later date. I want to get into this conversation and end it off, albeit somber. But on these two facts, DDP and Rusev. Unfortunately, we heard the news that both of them had contracted COVID over this past week. DDP has, obviously made some videos encouraging people to not only wear masks, but methods to basically protect themselves during these trying times. Rusev himself, has been, doing his podcast, making the rounds and stuff of that nature. Just, general thoughts on that, and as well, actually, in my notes, I also tied it in with another misfortune, the Will Ospreay situation, which, if many people are not aware of, unfortunately, this past week, or much recently, he went on social media and mentioned the fact that alluded to the fact that he had suicidal thoughts and certain things basically talked him out of those things. So he encouraged support for everyone during this time and just to treat everyone the way, they want to be treated essentially. So with all of those like real world particular situations emanating from outside the Western world within it, what are our general thoughts on it here at the Backstage Brawl? Go for it.
DDP, stay strong. That's all I got to say. Yeah, listen, my name is Diamond Cutter for a reason. DDP has been my guy since I was a kid. So the fact that he came out and said he had COVID was like one of my family members having COVID. I felt hurt. I don't doubt that he's going to beat it. I mean, DDP is in the best shape of his life. If he really wanted to, he can come back right now and give everybody a Diamond Cutter. I'm just saying. I'm being a little biased, but as far as the Rusev having COVID, this kind of sucks because it's so bad on Lana because both her parents have it and now her husband has it, and it's just like the three most important people in your life, right? And then you have to go to work, and then people have it. It's like the three most important people in your life have it, and speaking outside of wrestling, speaking as a person with, humane emotions, it's kind of hard to go to work and not think about the three most important people in your life.
I don't think
it's hard
to work, to be honest with you, because of all that's going on.
Okay, so I don't.
Okay,
so that's another thing too.
She puts other employees at risk. I mean, if they're WWE is smart, they would have to keep her away until everything's on the up and up. But
so that's another thing too.
But to add to that, with Miro, aka Rusev contracting COVID, it sucks. I mean, we're not out of the woods yet. With everything that's going on with COVID, with Spike coming back up and down and whatnot in different areas of the world, we're not out of the woods yet. This has been the most unconventional year anybody's ever had to face, whether it be for big loss or whatnot. But in terms of this pandemic, it's put a huge dent into a lot of plans that people may have had, whether for business reasons or for other areas of life. And for Lana, I feel bad for her too. Like, she's been going through it with her parents going through it. Now her husband's going through it. And now, you're stuck between literally a rock and a hard place in terms of how to, navigate, emotionally. And it's just one of those things. And as it pertains to Will Ospreay, I know that there's been a lot of criticism on his head since the speaking out movement has taken place. And, as good of a star that he's been overseas and in different parts of, American promotions, which he's performed at, for someone who's going through mental health, I would extend, my sympathies and in terms of you seeking help and to get well soon, because mental health is nothing to joke about. With Hannah, who tragically passed away a couple months ago because of, online, bullying and whatnot. Those are things that it takes a toll on a person, and for someone who's been receiving a lot of criticism because of the Speak Out movement and everything that's been going on, especially within the year, it's a lot for a person to take mentally. And for him, he's probably overseas and he's not been working. So it's been tough on all sides. And then you're getting this criticism. It's like, it's a wham bam on all fronts. You feel like you're clustered in and you can't really breathe. You have to find some way to let it out. And unfortunately, it's in a negative way in terms of contemplating ideas of self-harm or suicide. And, I would hope that his colleagues, his family, any close loved ones, if he has any, to basically be around him and shower him with as much love as possible and to help him or give him the opportunity to seek help. Because when you're going through something for mental health, depression or whatnot, or suicidal thoughts, you're really not alone in it. It's tough to burden those with, your issues, but at the same time, when it comes to your life, people do care about you. People do want to see the best for you, and they want to see you get help and to rehabilitate yourself, mind, body, and soul. And for Will Ospreay, on behalf of the panel, I do wish that you find some solace and rehabilitation in terms of your mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
I don't think anyone could put it any better. Honestly,
Seriously.
it's honestly been like a damper on all fronts. To your point, you know, like the business going through what it's been going through, leading to certain situations because we've all been going through it. Let alone the people who have been up top, and we see it in the NBA, we see it on different fronts, and like we're gonna continue to see it. So all the best to Will Ospreay and the rest of the people who have contracted COVID. And I just want to table this from Golden Child, People's Champ, Diamond Cutter, Kid Dynamite. We're out until a next episode of predictions. We're going to have ourselves predictions for Extreme Rules Horror Show. Stay tuned, y'all.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.